Hello and welcome to Solid Solutions Ireland Technical Tips in SOLIDWORKS. Today I'm going to talk to you about using custom properties inside of a SOLIDWORKS part file. Custom properties can be used for different things such as storing metadata of SOLIDWORKS parts, using that data to populate out title blocks on your drawings, or using that data in PDM to fill out your part card or your folder card. To access your custom properties, you've got two main methods. The first method is by going to File, down to Properties, and looking at your Custom Properties tab over here. You can also find it in your task pane in this Custom Properties tab. To use this one, you need to set up a Custom Properties tab using the Property tab Builder, and we'll discuss that in another video. For today, we're going to use properties inside of our file menu. Now, there are two different types of custom properties that we can set. The first one is custom properties, and the other one is configuration specific custom properties. The general custom properties here is anything that's applied to the entire part as a whole. This could be something like drawn by, or if you have a material that's applied to all of your individual configurations, or if you have some other property like a part number that's applied to all of the configurations, or whatever. On our configuration specific tab, we can have anything that's going to be applied on a configuration level. So while you may want to have one material for all versions of the part, you might also configure it that you've got different versions with different materials, a steel version, an aluminium, and so on. So you can put in a material property here that will be specific to each individual configuration. I'm going to use the general custom properties for today, and I'm just going to show you how to set up a few simple quick custom properties and show you how they're populated into a drawing. Firstly, I'm going to type in a new property over here. We can call this property anything that we like, or we can pick it from a predefined list. If I was to choose material from this list, this is a very common property you may wish to use, we can type in a material value over here. I can type in steel for this, and this will now be the evaluated material. If I want to link it to the material defined in SOLIDWORKS over here, I need to set this to something like, let's say, brass. Come back down to properties, you'll see it does not change. If I want this to update with the material that I've defined inside of SOLIDWORKS, I have to type in a special value. If I pull from this drop down list, I can actually get SOLIDWORKS to populate that value for me automatically, and that's using this SW material at partName.extension. You can see this is now evaluating to brass. If I click OK, that property is now set. If I now modify to, let's say, a 1060 aluminium alloy, go to properties, you can see that the material is now set to a 1060 alloy. If I now take a drawing of this part, you can see in the title block that material has gone across. What's happened here is this has read in the custom properties from my part file and used them to populate the title block. I'm going to now add in a new property to my part file to populate out the weight property here. Going back to my SOLIDWORKS part file, if I go into custom properties, I'm going to add a new property now for the weight of the part. I can now set this to be evaluated based on the mass calculated inside of SOLIDWORKS. SW mass at partName.extension. We can see that that comes to 349 grams. This comes from a combination of using the material that we've chosen and using its density, and working off of the evaluate mass properties. If I now switch back to my drawing, you can see that that weight that was calculated is now populated down here. We can also add a finish property, which I can go back to my part and apply. I can go to properties. I can either select it from the drop-down list or type it in myself and set this to whatever value I like. There is no linked value for this finish. I can't really have a property in SOLIDWORKS that links it to sandblasted, so I can type in here sandblasted. I could type in painted, just deburred, or anything I like in here. I'm going to click OK to this. I'm going to switch back to my drawing, and you can see sandblasted comes in now as my finish. The next question is, how do all of these properties actually populate the title block? Well, I'm going to show you here quickly with an annotation and a note. All of your items in your title block are actually notes. You can place a note anywhere on your drawing page, and you can type in any information you like in here. If I typed in material, that just gives me the words material. I then have to manually type in 1060 alloy if I wanted that to appear. Or I could link this note to a custom property. There are two ways of linking to a custom property. The first way is you could manually type in a predefined property. These are little bits of syntax that you know in the background of SOLIDWORKS. You have to learn them off. But when you type them in, they automatically convert to whatever that property is. Now, learning off a lot of these different properties can be very tricky. So how do you link it without having to learn this complex string, this $PRP sheet string? Well, you can go in there and you can use linked property in your note properties. This link to property tool lets me click on it and choose the property I wish to link to. Inside of here, you'll see I can choose custom properties from the current document or the model found here. Current document means the drawing itself. These are not properties such as material or finish, but these are properties of the drawing sheet itself. These could be things like the fact that it's an A3 size sheet, that it only has one sheet or two sheets with it, that its scale is 1:1, and so on. Model found here are all of the properties of the actual SOLIDWORKS part itself. These would include things such as the material, the configuration name, the finish, and any other custom properties that you've defined yourself. So I'm going to click Model Found here. I can then choose if it's going to be the drawing view specified in the sheet properties, which is the main drawing on the sheet. This is the drawing view where the drawing number comes from. Or I could choose a selected component or other drawing view. Usually this is used when you're linking to different drawing views that are different configurations or they're of different parts on an assembly drawing, etc. I'm just going to use drawing view specified in sheet properties. The property name I'm going to use, I can type it in or I can drop down and select material. I can click OK, and you can see that that is now linked to the 1060 alloy material. And if I was to change any of those back inside of the part itself, I can set this to copper. I'm going to go and set my finish to painted, click OK. And when I go back to my sheet, you can see material has updated to copper, both the one I typed in myself and the one I linked to automatically, as well as finish over here. Usually these notes that I've applied are ones that you put next to a drawing view. Sometimes people will then wonder, well, how can I put it into my title block instead of just as a note floating around? To add it to your title block, you need to come over to your feature manager, find the sheet that you have active, right click on it and go to edit sheet format. We can now see down in our title block that we've got all of our blue lines representing the outline of our title block, and we've got all of our black notes set up over here, and we also see some blue notes. Blue notes are ones that are linked to a custom property. When you mouse over a note that is linked to a custom property, you can see that special syntax I mentioned earlier that links to that note. Here we can see $PRP sheet material, we can see PRP sheet finish, and we can see down here PRP file name. To add a new one to it, let's say I wanted to delete out my finish and add in a new one, I can come in and I can type in finish, and this is just some kind of precursor text that I wish to add to it. I'll put in a colon, and then I can link to property over here. Model found here. Remember, current document is always of your drawing. This is always of the SOLIDWORKS part. Property name, I'll drop down and select finish. I'll click OK, and you can see I have now linked in that property. Just a note on our sheet format. Whenever you're editing the sheet format, you'll see your drawing views disappear. When you right click on sheet and go to edit sheet, they'll reappear and you won't be able to edit your sheet format or move that note around anymore. It's important if you are making major modifications to your sheet format that you may wish to use that as a template for further drawings down the line. So for that, you'll need to save it out as a sheet format file, and then you will need to make a drawing format or a drawing template out of that sheet format. This is something that we'll be discussing in a future video on setting up drawing title blocks, drawing templates, sheet formats, etc. Thank you for joining us for this video, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact the Solid Solutions Ireland technical team.